Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Jack. Back again to bring you the Healing Heroic Antorus Part 1. The first 4 bosses of Antorus, how to heal them, how to deal with them, how to make sure your raid survives. Starting off with Garothi Worldbreaker, 2 main mechanics you have to worry about, Decimation and Annihilation. Both of these mechanics will spawn from the boss's shoulder cannons, basically. And about 60%, 65%, he will come down, charge up both cannons, and try to annihilate you. Your raid will kill 1. And then they will no longer do the mechanics based off that cannon. So if you destroy the Decimation cannon, you will not get Decimation. You'll not get, if you destroy the Annihilation cannon, you will not get Annihilation. Now, Decimation, of course, will target players throughout the fight, and it will drop small green circles. These are targeted areas for the boss to launch basically rockets into. When those rockets impact the ground, they deal raid-wide damage. Annihilation is basically KJ's Armageddon mechanic revamped. It will now, these are green circles that spawn out of the boss. If they hit the ground and nobody soaks it, deals raid-wide damage. But this time you can soak with friends. You can have people soaking up these circles and splitting the damage there. So get an Annihilation, split the damage. The boss will come down, try to use both cannons to destroy you. You kill one cannon, we kill the Annihilation cannon, so we don't have to do any extra soaking. Then we all got stacked up and dealt with Decimation basically in an overdrive mode, where it's spawning Decimations a lot more frequently, and we just ping-ponged from one location to another every single time Decimation spawned, and we rotated healer cooldowns to deal with the ramped up Decimation that came out. Eradication is the last real mechanic as a healer to watch out for. Boss will basically charge up and then slam the ground in front of him. Very, very similar to Fallen Avatar's Rupturing Realities mechanic. Run away from him, make sure everyone stays topped off, and get as far away as possible to reduce the damage you take. Then get stacked up again and keep on rolling through healer CDs as damage goes out. Moving on to the Fel Hounds of Sargeras. These are 2 dogs that basically belong to Sargeras and are his pets, and we have to murder them. So simple and sweet. All right, they have 2 different abilities. You have to keep them separately, otherwise they enrage and deal a lot more damage to the group. And over this, you're going to be spending most of your time standing in between both dogs and being able to be in range of both tanks at all times in case they need extra healing, and focusing on the different mechanics to split or spread away from the entire raid group, right? Starting off, big mechanics you have to be worrying for is Siphon Corruption. This is going to be the big raid-wide damage that's going to be going out. You need to have everyone stack in together to help split up this damage. These are the purple circles. Stack for purple circles, split the damage, rotate raid cooldowns as needed. You'll have the Consuming Sphere that comes out, which will basically just draw players in. And by standing in the Consuming Sphere, you're going to be taking lots and lots of damage. So fight against the knockback. Make sure you don't get sucked in. The real thing you want to be watching out for, though, is of course the Inflamed Corruption that can happen while the sphere is going out. Inflamed Corruption is going to be red circles that spawn on players. These circles you do not want to stack for. They will deal the same amount of damage to the affected target as they will to anybody standing with them. Make sure you guys are spread out for that. Ensure that everyone is going to be, spread out enough that they're not going to be taking this damage. But watch out for, Inflamed Corruption happening at the same time as Consuming Sphere, because this can deal lots of damage to the group and can also drop somebody very, very low. Another big thing to worry about is going to be Raharg. Whenever he's going to be charging players, he will basically mark targets that he's going to be charging to. Make sure people are standing away from them. Make sure you don't stack these lines up because they'll be dealing tons of damage. Generally what we did is we just try to get everybody near the middle of the room. We spread out any of the red dog charges away from everybody else, and we try to stagger them enough so that they're not going to be running over other people. Fight the knockback fight the draw in from the Consuming Sphere. Make sure everyone stays spread out for the red circles. Stack up for the shadow circles, and you'll be just fine. On to the Antoran High Command. For this fight, you'll be bouncing between the 3 different main officers of the Eridar. They will be calling in reinforcements, and you will be operating with different Fel abilities there in order to get them all down. So, starting it off, you will have mines scattered across the room constantly. By standing in any of those, you'll be putting on raid-wide damage for a few seconds, and this effect will stack. So the more that you're clearing out these mines by walking over them, the more raid-wide damage you're actually going to end up dealing. This is especially relevant as you're going from one side of the room to the other to be able to encounter with another boss. It's very easy for raid members to walk over these, and by the time that you get your feet planted, everyone is dropping very, very low because of how much damage can actually be going out there. So keep this in mind as you're moving around the room. This could be an ideal time to use raid cooldowns if you're anticipating everyone just walking over mines no matter how many times you tell them not to. Anticipating this, knowing that people will be dealing this kind of damage even though they shouldn't, is definitely going to be a key point for the healers to watch out for. Make sure that you're watching this debuff that can stack up very, very quickly. You will see people taking quite a bit of single target damage throughout this fight from the Chaos Pulse. This is just a single target burst that comes out periodically, leaves a debuff, and just keeps on hammering one target. And usually it'll target 3 or 4 people at a time. At least they did in our 30-man. So watch those, dispel the debuff, keep on putting focused healing into them, and they'll be just fine. You will be able to enter into these command pods in order to deal more damage to the bosses, and also to clear out mines periodically. While you're actually controlling one of the command pods, you will be under a psychic assault, and this will deal increased damage to you the longer that you're staying inside the pod. The basic way to really deal with this is I set up a focus panel in Voodoo. That way I'm able to set up a focus target, focus that target, and I'm able to keep on healing them. In Heroic, the damage can ramp up really, really rapidly, so you have to really watch out for when you start taking about half your health or more in damage. It can quickly turn into a one-shot scenario, so if you are piloting, if you start taking heavy, heavy damage, don't be afraid to actually walk out of the pod or eject from the pod to make sure that you survive. The way that we did it in our raid group is we actually had our shamans doing it, and we just let them onk. So they would stay in as long as they possibly could. Healers would just dump healing into them until they died. They would onk, and then they'd be just fine. Keep in mind the risks that are open to you there. You will see a Fusillade raid-wide burst come out periodically. This can be a time for raid-wide healing and raid CDs in particular, depending on how many people are going to be getting under the Fel Shield. This Fel Shield is going to be mitigating tons and tons of damage. It should reduce about half the damage that they'll take. So if you're having the Fusillade come up too late, this can be a really good time to be using raid cooldowns. But ideally, if everyone's underneath the Fel Shield, then you just have to click on to be able to activate this. This damage mechanic shouldn't be really that painful to deal with. So keep in mind, on this fight in Heroic in particular, there's very few things that are going to be like one-shotting players. So you'll have some of the reinforcements that are coming up that might have some blade dances, they might be casting on players. So you always have to be watching out for like single target effects and things like that. But a lot of the damage will be spread out onto the entire raid. So as a general rule of thumb, making sure you're watching out for anybody dropping a little bit too low, say from any of the Chaos Pulses and things like that. As long as they're not dropping too crazy low, damage mechanics like Fusillade or any of like the Blade Lords that will be summoned to, Blade Storming on top of certain targets, nobody will drop low enough, hopefully, to be able to get gibbed by any of these mechanics. So keep everybody topped off. Watch out for the mines that are going out throughout the fight. Prepare raid cooldowns if you're anticipating a lot of players running over mines. Make sure everyone gets under the Fel Shield before the Fusillade, and you should be just fine. And lastly, for this video, we're going to Portal Keeper Hasabel. This boss, you have 3 different platforms that you'll have part of your raid group go up and deal with these mobs, go through these portals, fight these mobs from these other worlds, kill them, and unempower the portals that spawn. So at 90, 60, and 30%, Hasabel will empower these portals as the different mini-bosses will spawn through the portals. So half your raid group is about what we sent. Half your raid group goes through these portals, walks up, kills the main ad, kills the main mini-boss there to make sure that the portals are no longer empowered. When the portals are empowered, they'll be dealing increased damage to the entire raid. So the rest of your raid group that is basically just fighting Hasabel on the platform will basically be dealing with 1 or 2 mechanics. The Collapsing World, which is basically going to be large AoE raid-wide damage, and they'll be dealing with the laser spawns that will come out periodically throughout the fight here. So you'll see very, very frequently the Hellstorm barrages that will draw lines all the way across the room. They will knock you back if you get hit by them. They will deal tons and tons of damage. So generally what you're going to be having is you're going to be having the Collapsing Worlds come out. You'll be able to heal up that damage, and then soon after that you're going to have a Fellstorm barrage, and you'll have to make sure you find some narrow lines or narrow spots in between the lines that you'll be able to stand still and keep on casting here. So as a healer on the main platform, overall it's quite simple. You're going to be just bouncing between the 2 points basically when the Collapsing Worlds are going out. You will have to really keep in mind the percentages for when these portals do get empowered. They do ramp up the damage that goes out on the entire raid, and it can be very, very simple for Collapsing Worlds to be going on and a portal to start empowering and start dealing more damage to the raid as a whole, and then someone just gets hit by a Fellstorm barrage and gets killed. So increasing your reactivity to this, planning out your raid cooldowns, because this is one of the longer fights. This is about 6.5 minutes for us. So keeping in mind, you know, that you can be rotating your cooldowns pretty early, and it might actually be better, you know, as you're seeing the teams going up onto the platforms when they come back, if they haven't already had the need to use raid cooldowns, being able to get theirs into the mix. That way you're not going to be expending too much mana here. Depending on your raid group, this can be a really long fight, and this can actually be a lot more mana costly than the previous 3. So this is one area where you want to make sure that you're properly divvying up cooldowns. That way nobody has to be spamming too hard. That way they're going to be running later on. Our raid group had very good DPS, so it was about 6.5 minutes for us. But if your guild, if your pugs and things like that don't have great DPS, this can go to 7, 8 minutes. If not 9. Besides that, make sure you're watching for the Fellstorm barrages throughout this fight, and really watch the percentages. Again, 90, 60, 30 for when these portals get empowered, and they will deal a little bit more damage to the raid until your portal teams kill the mini boss and unempower and shut down those portals. Thank you so much for watching these first 4 bosses on Heroic, and just some of the quick healer tips and tricks and things like that that really have helped and really have served me for getting these bosses down in short order. Healers always play a vital role in the raid group, especially as you're starting to learn encounters, by helping make up for some of the mistakes of others as they're going through this. So, you know, by increasing your reactivity to damage, and by more quickly being able to top off this damage, you make it a lot easier for those who are, quickly failing at the mechanics to be able to make sure that they're going to be surviving through this, rather than them dropping low from unavoidable damage, taking a little while to heal up, and then they stand in a little bit of avoidable damage and just kills them from there. Hope you all enjoyed it. Hope you all found it helpful. I will have the rest of these videos coming soon. If you'd like to check out any of our VODs from our full heroic clears, you can find it linked in the description below. We've completed both of our split runs, our split heroics at this point, and we'll be getting ready, prepared for Mythic the following week. So we will be streaming all Mythic progression. Again, link is in the description. Hope you all enjoyed it. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll catch you all tomorrow.